Hello, my name is Ralph Attacco. I'm the Director of Planning and Economic Development, and we're here to talk about the Wing School. I know it's been a while since we've talked about the project, but we're here to remind everybody that it will be on the June 15th town meeting. So we want to reintroduce everyone to the project. Okay, I know we've had many meetings on the numbers and what it will mean to the community, but we want to take some time today to talk about what this legacy property will become. Just a little reminder of how we got here. Last year we put out a request for proposal, and we received a proposal back from the SEG group. And I want to introduce to who we have here to talk about the Wing School project. Again, I'm Ralph Attacco, and we're fortunate enough to have Janice Mamayek from Icon Architecture to talk about the project, and also we have Heather Harper, the Assistant Town Manager. Again, the proposal is a 128-unit affordable housing development for residents 62 and over. The entire project area is 31 acres, but a reminder to everyone, the town will be retaining the fields and the parking lot, and the housing development will only be on approximately 6 acres. It will be built over 3 phases, and in phase 1, the plan is to preserve and utilize the 1927 building. In the building, there will be 10 apartments, and the multi-purpose room will become a community space. And all in, this project represents a $53 million investment into the Sandwich community. So at this point, I want to hand it over to Janice to sort of start talking about the concept of the project.
Ralph, if it's okay, I might make just a couple of comments. And one, I just want to thank anyone who's viewing this for your interest in the project and your interest in the redevelopment of a very important property for the town of Sandwich. As you heard, there's been a significant amount of research, community investment, study, and evaluation of development proposals over the better part of 4 or 5 years by the town of Sandwich. And I just want to recognize and thank Janice from Icon Architecture for traveling several hours to meet with us in this virtual environment. We are socially distanced, but we really felt that having a conversation amongst ourselves before the public in preparation for the town meeting was worthwhile. And so we really want to thank you for making the way down. Janice comes with a tremendous amount of experience, which she will share with us, and insight and really unique experience in the type of project that we're looking at here. So I want to give you a chance to talk about yourself and the project, and I might interrupt you with a few questions along the way, if that's okay.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Janice.
I'm really honored to be here to talk about your community and your cultural asset and how it relates to what I do and what my firm does. A little bit about Icon Architecture. We're a women-owned business in Boston. And we have 3 primary practice areas: live, learn, and renew. And this project somewhat embodies all of them as we transform an institution of learning into new possibilities, new paradigms for living. Our work is also very collaborative. We're not telling you what this project will be. We are here to envision together a potential vision for the new property. And so our malleable design process really integrates all the different forces that want to be integrated. Transformative really is a key word as well as we address the needs of the town, as Ralph and Heather just mentioned, but in considering the options of the site, but also look at the needs of the senior demographic while addressing affordable housing needs across the area. I want to look at a few of the images that we are portraying as possibility for the site. The Henry T. Wing residence is starting at, I think there was an image of the school that I really want to start at. The goal is to really retain that, here we go, the 1927 historic structure, the auditorium, that academic wing, as the cornerstone of this new community. I mean, it is that historic cultural asset that brings memories and stories throughout your community, and we want to use that to build on not only a cornerstone for the community, but as a service node for your population. Ralph alluded to some of the services that we may be providing within there, similar to what we've done on other properties, and we'll look at those in a minute. But really making that part of that first phase and that catalyst for the rest of the development.
Can you talk a little bit about your design sense in terms of using the historic building as the anchor? And you can see that the other two wings, while it is a project of significance, those in scale appear to be from a streetscape perspective, have a nice view from the street. Can you talk a little bit about your thinking about the project and how it might appear from the street?
View from the street, as well as just the view of that historic structure. That takes prominence, and all of the new construction really wants to be secondary. We work a lot with historic structures, both with the National Park Service and the Mass Historic, and creating structures that are subservient, essentially. They're secondary. That's not the primary focus. The primary focus is what your community loves and revers as that cornerstone. So the intent is specifically to push that back from the street and to not have it dominate in the design and make it much more contextual in its feel and character.
Thank you.
So that's just it. I mean, we're envisioning initially, as the start of the dialogue, to maintain that historic structure and build off of that to the rear, units for seniors, 62 plus. And by initiating that new community with the services, the intent is that it's reaching a broader community, while the subsequent phases will be adding additional affordable housing units for seniors. The intent is that the services, whether it's community spaces or healthcare providers or that all remains to be developed as far as what the dialogue and the need and the community wants.
Thank you.
We could take a couple. So this, again, is starting to look at that, multiple different phases, different buildings. We've delineated this trellis, this walkway, as kind of unifying places, and they'll be created throughout the courtyards as well as the buildings develop a dialogue with each other to create place inside and out. A lovely night view of this same shot, but again, looking back at that historic structure as prominent in the development.
I think the next slides, Janice, take us all on an opportunity for a virtual tour of some of the work that you've done in other places that really embody the strengths of this site and this project, and why Icon Architecture is uniquely suited to take this project on. So if you wouldn't mind walking us through some of the other projects that we've referenced in other meetings, and give folks who haven't had a chance to drive to Bourne or to Yarmouth or to some of the other places to really see the beginnings and the fruitful ends of the projects you've worked on.
Thank you, because it really is that vision. I personally head up our Renew practice at Icon, and we've created a little niche of taking historic schools into new living communities. And what we want to show you now is, as Heather mentioned, some more locally. The Coady School in Bourne was most recently finished, I think 2019, 2018, end of 2018. But this is initially what it looked like. Again, a landmark in the community with many, many memories, but we transformed it into, with an addition, a new community for senior housing. You could see the side street with a suggestion of the addition that was built to the rear. Again, pushed back, subservient, not dominating the historic structures. Again, the historic to the right, the big arched windows as part of the original auditorium. A couple of those were maintained in a 2-story volume, but the remaining were part of loft units. So to have those large windows as part of your living environment is one of the best benefits of transforming these historic schools into affordable housing, something that typically isn't even achieved in market rate housing.
So do you see that opportunity with the wing school, reusing that school and renovating that space and keeping those historic windows is a really positive attribute, both for the community to retain those important historic artifacts, but also creating a really wonderful living space for the people who have the benefit of residing there. And are there any other features that you think are sort of unique to the wing school or to renovating a school for adaptive reuse for senior housing?
Yes, windows is the biggest one, right? Those big, large windows that once supported learning now create great living environments, but oftentimes, like at the wing, there's historic detail in the handrails and the moldings and the chalk rails that all are retained in these environments and give that warmth and recollection and continue the dialogue even into the future as to what it was in its past. So it's kind of a storyline that continues.
And
So windows, millwork.
if you could talk a little closer to the microphone.
Sorry.
We
Sorry.
want to make sure everybody hears everything you're saying.
All right, and I move around. My apologies.
I appreciate that.
Windows,
We all appreciate that.
Detail with the millwork, the stairs. The schools also, the corridors through the school are what we refer to as the sacred nave. We don't touch those, and I think it's a couple photos in where the lockers that lined the corridors as a school are retained. I mean, here you could see not only the lockers, but this was the principal's office at the Coady School, and all that millwork was restored and beautified and still there. But yet, if you open those double doors, there's a unit door, and some lucky soul gets to live in principal's office.
And also what happens when you open the doors to the lockers.
There you go. Before the Coady School was, transferred ownership, the local residents and past students were allowed to go into the school and write messages. Many of the lockers were filled with stories, such as you can see here, of their memories and repeatedly, don't forget us, we'll never forget you.
So that is such a great point, Janice. One of the things we've heard from the community is there is a lot of community passion around this building, and while people know that the future needs to change, they have a little struggle with letting it go. And so those are things that we have time to build in, would be some community activities that might engage the community in, providing the history and integrity of its former use while allowing it to move on for another really valued future community use. So thank you for that.
Right, I mean, which is true of a lot of these historic structures where they need to be resilient and be able to serve the community into the future and meeting the current and future needs that they haven't been able to meet in the past and the current.
And I think it's important, if we could go back exactly to that slide that in the Coady School, and we'll see in the Simpkins School, that you create community space. And if you could.
Well, this is a view of, you can see the old science lab on the upper portion, that kind of bay that extends was the plant room of the science lab for the school, and it's transformed into a lovely community space, but the masonry is the old school and the green is the new that engages it, and they encompass a lovely outdoor community gathering place that is populated immensely and loved by the new residents that are there.
Well, I can't tell you how much it means, I think, to me and to the community to hear you talk about the Coady School, knowing which rooms were the principal's office, where the science lab was, integrating the integrity of those hallways as You used a religious term, I think.
Sacred.
Sacred.
I mean, we
Sacred space.
we cannot
yes.
touch them. They are to retain as they were.
Yeah, and so that really is hopeful for us as we move forward with the project, that we'll all develop, build, and pass on those same values as we look at the redevelopment of the Wing School. So I think you're going to talk now, and we'll go a little quickly through the slides we've seen already about the Simpkins School in Yarmouth, which is another, I think I've gone too far, another successful project that you were lucky enough to be involved with.
Exactly. So the Simpkins School had that strong masonry mass, and it had two wings. You could see on either side white one-story wings, whether they be the auditorium to the left or the gym to the right. And we were, I think if you flip to the next, you can see a little bit more about the wings, and you can start to see the addition that was done to the rear. Again, very secondary, not dominating the original historic structure that is a cornerstone of the community, but creating new housing throughout the masonry school building and the gym wing, and then connecting to more residential units beyond. But the left was the auditorium, and part of our goals there was to maintain that for community use, a shared use. The residents that live there use that as their kind of gathering place, their lounge, but yet it's open for Boy Scouts to have their meetings or other groups to come in and take advantage of that newly renovated place that they know and will continue to use.
I think you've got a great image here of the way that the historic building integrates with the new facility here as well.
They both wrap a courtyard, again, looking at place, both private and public. I mean, these buildings do stand as very public instruments of your streetscape, but yet allow that semi-private space.
And one of the things we don't have images of here, but this project is also integrated with some school recreational fields or community recreational fields, and that's one of the things I really loved about this project. I was familiar with it many years ago when it was first developed. And the town of Yarmouth has done a really great job creating more of a community core around its central services. And so this building gets to retain its active life as part of the community. And you've got your senior development. It actually may not be, this may not be.
Senior.
This is senior development, but also the school recreational fields are right there. And it really is one side of the development, you're in a residential neighborhood and you'd barely know that there was anything going on there. And on the other side, which is the 28th side, you get a really nice view of an important historic building with athletic programs going on right outside. And it really does make it feel part of, the bigger circle of the community, which is a really nice feature that we have the great opportunity to replicate here as well.
Coady School had the ball fields there as well. I mean, There isn't a school that doesn't have recreation fields, so it's very common in our experience.
Nice. So we're just moving through, and we get a sneak peek of what a unit may look like.
Again, this is a peek within a unit at the Simpkins School. As we start to develop, or we continue to design for senior housing, kind of recent events have us thinking about new ways to support the population. Post-COVID-19 integrates a lot of new challenges, and we continue the dialogue both internally within our firm, but broadly within the Boston Society of Architects and beyond the greater community about how we create place, when you're sheltering in your unit, and broaden that to varying degrees of trust, whether it's your neighborhood, meaning your units and your neighbors directly adjacent to you, or what kind of other spaces can be adaptable from the community perspective. And integrating the technology that can sometimes bridge that gap and connect people at other levels that face-to-face or hands-on isn't always possible.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, Janice. We've certainly had experience in the last 10 weeks, 3 months, serving the senior community in a way that we haven't in the past. in terms of the duration and the real interaction with the community at their household level. And we know that there's a continuing need for that community support. And so having a living environment where there's both independent living, which we know is important, but as well as the option for a more convenient supportive services role where both the services on site and the community at large can support a community in a healthy way that's both socially distanced but can be accessible to provide the needs of the community.
Right, connection while social distancing.
Right.
And that's where
Very important.
this model really does come in, to know that someone can get your groceries for you, or facilitate virtual doctor visits, or whatever the need is, that a model such as that can help.
Thank you. I think the next slides are really about the Wing School project, and give a bit of the layout, and maybe if you just talk us through what you think the site design looks like.
Okay, well, again, our initial thoughts were identifying, you could see the 1927 historic building, both the auditorium and that academic wing closest to Water Street in phase one, with some additional common space and, the wing of residential units towards the, reaching out towards the ball fields as really being that cornerstone, and then subsequent phases, phase two and phase three, creating more of that critical mass, that supported community. We like to say cultivating community one neighbor at a time, and it really is looking at each individual that brings a positive force and love to the development.
And then lastly, we have a slide of the overall campus, and maybe, Ralph, do you want to talk a little bit about this and what's retained and what that means for the community?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as I stated earlier, the Henry T. Wing School is approximately 31 acres. And I just want to point out that the development that is proposed will be on the front portion of the campus where the current school is right now. So it's going to take up about 6 acres. And this is a great illustration of what we are looking to change and what we are looking to retain. The Wing School itself will, when we work collaboratively with SEG and ICON in the community, we're looking to get a project very similar to what Janice has been talking to us about, and more importantly, to keep that community feel. We are retaining the ball fields and the parking. And as you can see, that sort of the parking on the right and that parking in the rear by the ball fields, all that will be retained. So that's really an important factor in this project. People have expressed the desire to keep that and sort of keep this a community space, and that's really the goal of this project, is to be a community space, as a housing development, to be a community space as the fields, and really to work together for the community of Sandwich.
Thank you, Ralph. And I think maybe I'll just wrap up, unless, Janice, you have any sort of closing comments. We're really glad to have you here. Thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you for having me. I'm hopeful for the Wing School's future.
So I can maybe just make a couple of comments that this will be the subject of a vote that requires a 2/3 vote. So a substantial investment by the community requires 2/3 of town meeting to authorize the community preservation funds needed to meet the investment of the project, investment needs. And those investment needs are important to be substantiated by the town. The town investment in the project is important to the other lending and funding institutions that the developer will need to take advantage of in order to build the project. We have done our own analysis of the investment, and we feel comfortable that the request of the Community Preservation Funds, as affirmed by the Board of Selectmen, the Community Preservation Committee, the Capital Advisory Committee, Capital Improvement Advisory Committee, as well as the Finance Committee. Did I hit everybody, Ralph? All of the boards have all voted in support of the project and the investment because it does continue to preserve the 1927 building, meets the community goals of retaining fields and parking. It it divests the town of the maintenance fees or the burden that we really feel of the potential capital investment needs of the building, the roofs, the HVAC systems. It does demolish the later wings of the building, allowing the 27 to be preserved without the direct significant cost of the town. The building will be properly returned to the tax rolls and will be a contributing building to the community's tax base. And it, of course, provides much-needed affordable senior housing to the community. So a lot of advantages to the project. We know there's a lot of community passion and interest in it. We will be hosting a Zoom community meeting, our first community meeting using that platform on June 11th to focus on this, as well as the senior tax exemption question that will appear on the June 15th town meeting warrant. So if you have questions, you can get those to Ralph and I in advance of that meeting, and we'll try to answer those. You certainly can participate in those meetings either by watching them on SCTV. We will have a call line as well as a public information email if you're not Zoom interested or set up. So there'll be multiple ways for you to participate, and we hope that you do ask questions so that when town meeting comes, we're all prepared to place that before town meeting and take a vote. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you, Janice, Ralph.
Thank you, and
Thank you.
thank you, Janice.
Thank you, Taiki.